Yeshua, Jesus, is not our Sabbath. You ever heard anybody when you tell them that you want to keep the fourth commandment, Exodus 28 through 11, Exodus 23:12, they said, well, Jesus is our Sabbath now. Yeshua never went around telling everybody, I'm your Sabbath now. Generally, where people go to is the end of Matthew chapter 11. In Matthew 11, I think it's verses 28, 29, and 30, it says something like this. I don't know if I can remember it perfectly, but he says, come unto me, all you who are weary and heavy laden, and I'll give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me. We'll come back to that word from here in a second. Learn from me, for I am gentle and lowly of heart, and you will find rest for your souls. And it's actually a quotation in part of the book of Jeremiah, chapter 6, verse 16, where the prophet Jeremiah is talking about adhering and paying attention and practicing the Torah, the law of Yahweh, and you'll find rest for your souls in the old paths. If you'll notice, Yeshua is not there talking about you don't have to keep Shabbat, because the very next chapter in Matthew 12, 1 through 8, when they're going through the grain fields, he gives a reason for how Shabbat is to be kept when the Pharisees accuse his disciples of breaking Shabbat by their actions. He doesn't just say, well, remember, I'm the Sabbath and you don't have to keep it anymore. Or he doesn't say the Sabbath is abolished in me. He gives a reason from Holy Scripture as to why it was okay for the disciples to do what they were doing on Shabbat. What he's talking about is during Yeshua's time, there were different groups within Judaism, different rabbis within those groups, and some rabbis and some groups had a very forceful way of teaching. Study some of the sects within the Pharisees, Sadducees, and Essenes, especially there. They would teach the law often as a checklist where you had to put a check beside, so to speak, every single commandment, and you weren't righteous until you had everything perfect, all the I's dotted, all the T's crossed. And Yeshua is saying, you've been taught this stringent view of the Torah, and there's no grace, there's no mercy, there's no compassion. The weighty matters of the law are not being observed. And come unto me. If you're tired of being downgraded, if you're tired of the law being used as a hammer to nail you to the wall, like some groups were doing, come unto me and I'll give you rest. Taking on the yoke of a rabbi was considered like you were yoking your neck, just like you would yoke two animals to plow a field. You would yoke your neck to the rabbi and you would begin to mimic and imitate what the rabbi did. But take my yoke upon you, he says, and learn not of me, not learn about me, learn from me. The way that I teach is I teach the Torah as a guide. I teach the Torah as a way of life. I teach the Torah with grace, mercy, and compassion. I teach the Torah with gentleness and humility. Learn from me. Take my yoke upon you. My burden is easy. My yoke is light. You'll find rest for your souls when you listen to the way that I teach. That's the context of Matthew 11, 28 through 30. I invite you to read some of the scholarly commentaries there on the Matthew chapter 11. Look up a guy named David Biven. He wrote a book called Understanding the Difficult Words of Jesus, if I'm not mistaken. Nothing in that teaches that Jesus is our Sabbath. He's not. He's not. The Sabbath day is a day that Yahweh blessed, Genesis 2, 1 through 3. It's still to be kept today by the disciples of Yeshua. If you want to be a disciple of Yeshua, you need to be concerned about keeping the Sabbath day.